All right. Okay. Welcome, Matt. This is round 2 of our webinar with I Can Help. The first time we talked about their curriculum and what it means to be a digital citizen. And today we're going to talk more about social media, how to manage content and build social media teams. It is June 11th, and so our teachers are hanging out and they are enjoying their well-deserved breaks. So this will be fun to talk. We got Taylor, he's on the road. He's going to St. Louis for a conference. And Alyssa joining us from Iowa. So yeah, this will be great.
Yeah, Alyssa's
We're all over the world.
Yeah.
Right? Iowa, California, Nebraska, St. Louis. Love it.
Yeah.
Shall we jump in?
Yes. Yep. Let's see here.
Need me to share?
Yep. Did I give you access here? Let's see here.
You did.
Okay. Great.
Is that working?
Yep. Looks good.
All right. Are we in presentation mode?
Yes.
Yay. So a little bit about us. I know we kind of shared this last time, but just online safety, social media education. Actually have some announcements we're gearing up for, some really cool things coming out. Maybe check some of our social. We just got back from an event with the Yankees in New York City. So that's like my shameless plug moment, because honestly, as a sports person, it was very cool to be down on the field at Yankee Stadium, especially just first time there. So nerd moment aside, this is kind of what we do. So my background, I was about almost 15 years in education, between coaching and admin and teaching, video production, English, you name it. And kind of social media sort of came out and exploded in that time that I was there. And as teachers, about managing phones and whether they're on phones or off phones, or how they're sharing, how they're talking, especially from admin, if you're investigating, not investigating. And really at the end of the day, it's about how do you connect your campus? And there's conversations about bullying and cyberbullying and all this other stuff. Same thing. At the end of the day, it's how is your culture and climate? And so as educators, we have a huge influence, not only on our students, but our students upon other students, and how we interact on our campus, what we share, what we celebrate, how we tell our stories. And that became a very powerful lesson. And in the early days, for being a new teacher, to kind of when I left the classroom to do this full time, of really just having our social media humming, having our school events humming, everything working together, and saw a huge increase in participation and engagement. So just going to share some of that today, especially if you're looking at the summer, or how to kind of start off your back to school year. So food for thought. Realize, Facebook just turned 10 years old not too long ago. First smartphones, iPhone around 2007, 2008. Instagram and Snapchat even newer than that, right? So you're dealing with technology that's still pretty fresh, and how each generation, whether you're even talking about millennials, up to boomers, up to Gen X, I think we're on like Gen Y or Gen AA at this point, but they're all interacting with social media in a different way. And so we kind of need to be cognizant of that, and really involving students in the conversation and figure out how they're communicating, what they're communicating. I'll share a little bit of research and kind of what we've seen, but kind of involving them in the conversation, because you really want to figure out how to connect with them. Like simple marketing stuff I learned years ago, like if you make a poster or put up a billboard or a sign, someone needs to walk by that sign 6 times before they even read it. So if you're putting signs up on your campus, and you realize someone's going to walk by that sign at least 6 times before they even acknowledge that it's there, read that it's there. And we've all dealt with this, right? Where it's just like, hey, I hear there's a dance this weekend. What's going on? You're like, have you listened to the announcements? Have you read the signs? Like, there are signs, and it's, as a teacher, you kind of get frustrated. As a classroom teacher, I would get frustrated. A kid would come up and be like, what did we do yesterday? Well, I don't know. Did you look at the agenda on the board? Did you check the binder in the back of the room? Did you get the status update on Twitter? Did you talk to your friend who's sitting next to you? Did you read the blog post that outlines everything we're doing this week? Did you get the text reminding you about the homework? Like which one of those are you missing? And so the phrase that I've always used is, hey, how do I eliminate the excuse as a teacher? What procedure policy can I put in place? So at some point there has to be some ownership. And then 2, where are they at? If it's parents, if it's students, where can I hit them up on social media in order to connect them? So when you get started, and I'll kind of elaborate on some of that. First things first is really check your policy. So when I started with social media, I went to my principal first and said, hey, I really want to do this, because we did not have any district policy related to social media. And I needed her support, because if something did happen, schools are a very good target for this kind of thing. If something did happen, I needed to know that I would have administrative support. And she was down with that at first. I presented my plan, what I was going to do, how I was going to integrate social media with my students, and she was totally down, and it made my life easy. So check your policy on that. We definitely have policy examples and stuff that we can share. When it comes to photo sharing, realize almost everyone has some kind of photo release, particularly around your yearbook. And so you're going to want to consider having something in your acceptable use policy or in your back to school packet that says, hey, we may be using your kid's photo from school events, and then have it, the parents can opt out of that. But almost all of them, if their photo's in the yearbook, you can generally put their photo up on social media, but check your policy. Some districts, they can share photos, but they can't put the name with the photo, right? If you're celebrating someone, no one seems to get too upset. If it's a public event, think about anything after school. If it's a sporting event, a play, something that the public has access to, then the privacy thing isn't as strict, and you can kind of take those photos, and usually for promotion or marketing, things like that. Think about how your school wants to access social media. So sometimes you may have a district device. So we worked a lot of districts where there's like a phone or tablet that is pre-logged into all the social media channels, and then that gets checked out to an individual, and they can post in those accounts. So you want to have a conversation about, what devices. So for example, if it's the school Facebook account, can I access that from my phone as the teacher, or should there be a district device that has access to that Facebook account to sort of keep it all in-house? You want to talk to your admin about that. And I guarantee you IT and admin will have very different answers depending upon how techy they are. And then work with your students. I know Taylor has been preaching this forever as well. We get off on these conversations, but talk to your students about messaging and branding, about when you want to post, looking at data, and we'll kind of deep dive into a lot of this stuff. But figure out what you're going to post, when you're going to post it, how you're going to post it, have them generate the content, really get some ownership in there. And then survey. So back to school is coming. This is a great time to survey your students, right? Put it in the back to school folder, do it as an email, as a text message, however your school communicates. But really find out what platforms are parents on, what platforms are kids on. You may find out that they're on a lot of social media networks. You may find out that they're not. You may find out that they like texting and calling. It's really going to vary depending upon the age and location. We'll go to some places and every kid's on Snapchat. You drive 3 hours away from there, everyone's on Facebook. You really want to find out what the platforms are that kids and family in your community are using, and go to those platforms and build content for those platforms, because that's where you're really going to engage them. Oh, so nice. We did it twice.
Matt, I'll just add real quick, a plug for Class Intercom. So that's basically what we're doing, is making that safe so you can have more people involved, so you don't have to issue out those district devices with the username and passwords already loaded in. You can manage that all through Class Intercom, which is great. And to get more stories out. So that's the game.
So my dream is that you soon invent time travel, and you can go back and introduce that back in 2008. And then I can use it when all this stuff exploded. So let me know when you got it. Awesome. I love it. See, collaboration. Just to give you some perspective, because I definitely have a spot for Class Intercom in a little bit too, so I want you to jump off there. If you look at the users, right, so Facebook, you have 1 billion users, and these are global, right? So you have 1 billion users on Facebook. You have over 500 hours of video posted every minute on YouTube. This number's up. I have 700 million. It's actually 1 billion now, but on Instagram, you have 1 billion users. You have 400 million daily users, 75% outside of the US. It's a lot of content. 100 million users who share close to 9,000 photos and videos per second. So there is a lot that's happening on social, and it's more than any one of us can keep track of. So several things going on here. If you're looking at this at a safety perspective, the more we can train students to know and how to respond to this stuff, the safer we're going to be, because they're going to see it first. You want as many eyes on the content as possible. 2, you want to create content that differentiates itself from everything else that's out there. How you use hashtags, the types of photos you take, the types of stories you sell. And this is why it's very important to have students involved, because they kind of know what they like. They know what other students are dialed into, and they really will be connected to oh, well, think this look good. Have them think through the process of how you're going to put it out there and separate it out from everything else that's already being published. And then just raising awareness. So if you know that there's this much content going on, and separate it out, thinking about, all right, on Facebook, on YouTube, on Instagram, on Snapchat, how do I separate my content out for each of those channels? Because sometimes you can get away with sharing some of the same stuff. Sometimes you can't. The one I don't have up there is Twitter. Twitter has 1 billion tweets shared every 2 days. Again, it's a lot of content. And so knowing how you want to interact on those channels, how you want to share information, what we see a lot of educators, particularly on Twitter, they think of social media as a one-way street. And for the most part, your kids do too. So if you're trying to get any interaction, you really need to train your students on how to communicate on these platforms. And think of your audience, like you teach them how to communicate with you. In our classrooms as teachers, we train them on how to communicate with us from the moment they walk in the door to the moment they walk out. It's culture. And so how do we build that culture up online and offline? Because that current generation, and it's the same. There's no separation. Like that is how they see their world. That's how they're connected to their world. And so even if something happens online or offline, it can have the same impact on them physically and emotionally sometimes. So we talked about identify our platform. So is it Facebook? Is it Instagram? Is it Twitter? Is it Snapchat? You may want to go to YouTube if you have a video channel. Stories you're putting out. We'll share some examples, but Humans Will Aware is a great example of that, where they're telling student stories similar to Humans in New York. We've seen a lot of those similar accounts pop up. Bristow Compliments is largely stories, short videos, but it's all on Instagram. So again, identifying the platform where your students are at, that's what you want to target. I also recommend start small, right? So it took me 6 years from when I started. I started with Twitter, and then after Twitter, I went to a blog, and I had Twitter in the blog, and then after Twitter in the blog, Remind came out, so then I added texting, and that actually ended up being my biggest asset. And then once I added texting, then we added Instagram, okay, because then that came in a few years later. And so every year we kind of added one new piece of technology. And then once I, as a teacher, kind of mastered that, it became part of my procedure and my flow. Then I was able to add something else. So at the end of 6 years, we had just a beautiful little system put together in terms of communicating information out to the masses. So start with a team. No team is too small. And you'll find this out right away as soon as you start posting content. And there's one sports team, club, or other group that says, well, we had an event, you never post about us. And so I always use those opportunities like, that's a very good point. Would you like to take some photos of me from your water polo game and send it to me? Or your speech competition over in Florida, like, could you send me photos from that? And really just recruit people, because it's, I as the admin, because there's usually one staff member who oversees it all, and it's whoever's the most techie sometimes, or the one who just says yes, or the yearbook teacher, whoever seems the most obvious. That one person can't do it all. Like, social media is a full-time job in and of itself. That's why companies hire several social media marketing people who just do digital components. So think about who are the students, who are the admin, who are the parents, who are the athletes, who are the clubs, yearbook. You could be the gatekeeper. This is why I think Class Intercom is brilliant, because you can have a central location where everyone can log in and share content. I existed pre-Class Intercom, which is why Taylor's going to invent time travel. But the idea was that they could send me content, and I had a parent who was upset because they had an event coming up, and I said, hey, I know you're doing this event. Can you take me some pictures? And I'm good at networking. So I'd find the kids who I knew were going to be at those events, and I'd say, hey, can you take these are the pictures I need. Can you make that happen? Or I'd find the parent that I could build a relationship with, like, hey, if you send me these photos, I'll put them up on social. And they want to be celebrated. They want that recognition. And for us as a school, because we started doing that offline, right, every senior day, through student leadership, student council, we would pick, 2 sporting events or a play or a concert. Like, we made a conscious effort to have students at that event. We'd make posters for those students recognizing their efforts. We'd be there to kind of celebrate them. If they're going off to competition, we make a poster, hey, good luck. And then we take pictures of those posters. We get pictures from the event. We put it up on social and kind of cross-reference everything. So we knew that every extracurricular activity was getting recognized. Every Spirit Day, if kids were dressing up, that was part of the stories, is we'd have 10 or 15 students going around campus, and they'd be taking pictures of kids who are dressed up, or entire classes who are dressed up. And then we give, prizes away as we could. Either stuff was donated, or we get, my kids would go out and get gift cards donated. I made them do all the work because it's a good skill to learn. And we just kind of randomly hand those out if someone went above and beyond for a Spirit Day, a dress-up day, a special event, you name it, just to give them some recognition. And then sharing all of that online as much as we could with like really good, high-quality pictures. And just have it just kind of constant, and then tagging students and sharing students. They love seeing themselves and seeing, how many likes can I get? We talk about that being a bad thing, but there's also some excitement to it. Like, oh, on this post, we got 100 likes, we got 200 likes, we got 30% engagement, 40% engagement, and just kind of playing around with that. And if nothing else, they feel special for being celebrated. Mm-hmm. Right? And it's kind of a cool thing. Good so far?
Yeah. Great.
Yeah, I'll just add, Matt, some of the experience I've heard from kids on that. They do look at the likes. They like looking at the analytics.
Yeah.
Because what that does is it gives them feedback.
Yep.
And then they can use that and go, oh, like, this didn't get any engagement, so we're not going to continue doing that type of thing. Um,
Yep, that's a great
and
one.
there's no grades, there's no grading in this, and so that's how they get that feeling. When you get an A on a paper, that's a good feeling, and you want to replicate that. And the same thing applies for this. And
Yep.
that's why I'm an advocate for making this an actual class. And
Yeah.
that's a trend I'm seeing go upward, and you were way ahead of it.
Yep. No, it's data, like, and this is just my experience because I know it's not always this way, but math, I kind of did okay till I got to statistics. And then I'm like, oh my gosh, like I could do something with this. And I got really excited. And the data, it's all about that, just calculating and looking and, how do you analyze it? And you're right, no, the kids would get really excited. Even just, I'll share in a minute, just talking about, all right, what time should we post this? Like they would have some ridiculously deep conversations.
Mm-hmm. That's so
It was awesome.
That's cool that you say that, Matt. Alyssa and I this year, we talked at NIDA about spotlighting your students online, and it was so cool to share that conversation with people and some of their questions, and then as they came to our booth. But just kind of a new thing and something that we try to make an effort to do as well on our Strive U, and Alyssa doing stuff with Region 5 is these are our academy students, and how does our graphic look, and like how do we communicate in the caption, what they're doing and what it is. So it's been cool to share that this year.
Yep. Oh, that's amazing. Yeah, especially, and we're getting a lot of questions from our students, especially our interns, about how to kind of utilize LinkedIn a little bit better. Like that's a platform they're really getting excited about. And I can tell you most of my professional connections are coming through LinkedIn. It's pretty incredible.
Cool.
All right, so quick tips. When you get started, we run into this one a lot. Try and have your IT department create a generic email. So it could be usually whatever the school name. So this generic one here, like westhighschool.com. It might be like westhighschool.ca.k12.us. There's some funky ones out there. But have like Facebook chat, right? And then that's the email. You're laughing because you know it's true.
I know. I've seen some really long ones with like 5 dots in between 2 letters.
Yeah. Yeah, you could tell that was a programmer, not a normal human who speaks. And then it could be Facebook ad, Instagram ad. It might even be a social media ad. And the reason for this is we'll see, particularly like principals back in the day would start a social media account, and then they'd move to a district level position or transfer out, and all of a sudden no one had the email or information to log into that account. And it goes dead, especially if you spend a lot of time building up a huge following, and then you just stop posting. So the more of a generic account, this also gives you freedom to have more administrators. So it could be the school secretary or the administrator, the teacher, whoever it is. It gives you easy access. And then particularly another recommendation that's not on here that I'm really advising is we've had a lot of accounts get hacked lately because just of really poor passwords or kids overshare. But we see accounts who get taken over. And it's really hard, particularly on Instagram, even with our connections, it's very hard to get those accounts back. Without some really good social engineering. So having the double authentication set up to where, hey, your password just changed, then you have 4 people who can see that and be like, oh, I didn't mean to change my password. Why are we doing that? Or if there's a request to change a password, or even having a district cell phone set up to where someone's getting a text message, hey, someone's trying to change your password, you can get your account back very quickly. And the generic email really is going to help with that, especially if it's not going to go away at the district level. You can see about a device, again, with Class Intercom, that changes things. It really depends on how sensitive your admin is for just control and responsibility, because they may come out and say, like, we do not want this account on a student's phone, right? We'll feel better if it's on a teacher's device. So see if they'll supply a device, or even better, see if they will pay for a program like Class Intercom, wink, wink, that will then kind of help you manage it for you, right? Because you're really, from the liability standpoint, at the district level, admin level, like that's their first kind of indicator. Like, all right, well, our kid's going to be bullied. Like, no, here's our plan for that. Okay, how are you going to manage the content? Here's our plan for that. And really just kind of have a system. As a teacher, it's all about systems and procedures. And then it could be a specific teacher. Every site's going to want to have some kind of gatekeeper, preferably someone who's really dialed in, or someone who's really connected to students, good at building relationships with students, who knows how to kind of push the right kid in the right direction to go to an event, to take a picture, to share it. One principal we talked to, they had, if you remember, some walkouts a couple years ago at schools after the school shootings, and she found out no one was looking at her Twitter account, but she identified a student on her campus who was getting something like 4,000% higher engagement than she was. And so she started contacting that student like, hey, I'm going to post this. Could you share it through your Twitter account as well? And so she identified the student who can then share that content. And that student was the one who pushed stuff out. And so more people on the campus, more students, more parents were actually getting the correct information, which when something happens, that's the number one thing, is you want to get the right information out to the community as fast as possible before stuff goes viral in a very negative way. If it's a field trip, this is where the school calendar is important. You know, who's going on the trip, who do you know on the trip, who could take a picture, who could post a video. Story takeovers are amazing. If it's a speech competition, if there's any types of awards being given, any kind of showcase, a big tournament, something where, you know, if they can do story takeovers are huge. But even just getting a picture, like, hey, shout out to the wrestling team for your trip last weekend to the state tournament. Shout out to our hosted club. You just had an amazing event. We're proud of you. You made nationals. Congratulations. Or, hey, check out Mark, who won this award. Anything you do to kind of highlight that stuff, you really want to stay connected in and knowing what you're going to be sharing when. And then create a calendar. Post about everybody, right? That's the thing about having that. And your students can manage it. We always had a giant whiteboard. It was a 12-month calendar up on our wall. And that had everything on it. And then each month, the kids would make a poster, and like we'd have day by day, like what event was going on, and we'd write down like whose name was in charge of that. And then every class would start with, what are we doing today? What's going on this week? Who's in charge of it? Are you ready for it? Do you need anything for it? And we kind of get that information out. And then this one's huge. I think this gets overlooked quite a bit, but definitely develop your own hashtag. You really want to have your own hashtag, and even having a series of hashtags, like look around, talk to your kids. Like ours, for example, was KHS activities, but really have the conversation. So everything you post, particularly on Twitter and Instagram, you want to have those in there. They give you up to, particularly on Instagram, up to 30 hashtags for a reason. You may not need that, but there's some really good strategies as you're raising awareness. The more hashtags you have in there, the more people you're able to tag in your post, the more discoverable you will be. And if someone's doing a search content, and let's say like if your high school's in Manteca, California, if you use all the right hashtags, then when you goes to do a search in Manteca, California, or does a search for Manteca, or does a search for your school name, you want your content to be at the top. You just want them to find it. And so the more you can kind of engineer that, the better. And then this is the last one. This really bothers particularly teachers. I have this fear as well, but shamelessly promote yourself. Have your logo everywhere. Have your content everywhere. If you want to get like really saucy, like every parent who follows you on Facebook, like if they show you, they can get to the front of the line pass or like a free coupon to something, or, you know, go to local yogurt shop, say, hey, can we get 10% off? Hey, I followed you. Do contests like, hey, if you follow us on social media and do this thing, we're giving away this shirt. I would hide, when I was trying to train my students on how to interact on social media, I realized for a while they were only consuming content, they weren't interacting with it. And so I go on there and be like, hey, the first 10 people to like this post, I'm going to give you a candy bar at school tomorrow. Hey, I hid this shirt on campus. Here's a picture of where I hid it. If you find it, it's yours. Hey, the first 30 students outside of my room by 7 o'clock tomorrow, you're going to get a free Spirit shirt. But I really wanted to train them when they read it, like something was going to happen, something tangible, and incentivize that. And then they would start telling their friends. So even if I had students who weren't on social media, I was then at that point able to engage them, because they would tell their friends like, oh, we're getting a shirt tomorrow. Do you want to go early? They would kind of pull their friends into it because there's still a social aspect to it. Back to school night, like that should be up on the screen. Hey, if you want to know what's going on, we need all of you to follow us. Take out your phones right now. We have students in the audience who will come around and help you, and they will teach you how to follow. We'd have tables set up, you know, with stickers or whatever, where people could help them like, hey, oh no, I'll log into Facebook. Great. How do you log into Facebook? I'll show you how to find your page and like it. Great. Now you're going to see everything that's going on. This really changed for me with Remind, and then Remind back to social media, where at freshman orientation with, you know, in my case, we had 500 freshmen. We'd all have them take out their phone. We'd have 100 juniors and seniors right there, and we'd have them log in to do the Remind. At that point, we got about 60% of our students who would log in at that point, and they get another 10 to 15% within a couple weeks after that because they realize they're missing out. Seniors, we had senior breakfast, senior sunrise. So first week of school, Friday morning, students would come around 6 in the morning. We do donuts or pancakes or whatever. That's where we would take our senior photo. Kids would be dressed up. We'd pull out a giant sign. Hey, text this number. If you want to know what's happening in your senior year and not miss out on anything, this is your chance to do that. And we'd easily get 50% of the students there. What was great, it took 3 years, but within 3 years, over half my student population was now signed up for Remind by just doing freshmen and seniors. And then we'd have signs up on the other ones. And so once they sent the text, then we could push out stuff through text message. We can direct them to social media. Hey, special event this week. Make sure you follow us on Twitter to find out more. Hey, special event this week. Make sure you follow us on Instagram to find out more. And so we kind of do this back and forth stuff. So between the texting, social media, websites, posters, and students going around by class and just announcing it, it got to a point where kids really started knowing what was going on. And I'll kind of share that case study at the end. We saw a huge amount of engagement go up from there. So we'll kind of jump into Snapchat here. We're learning more and more that our students they like Snapchat and they don't. They don't like the advertising. They kind of like the stories and the one-on-one messaging. I will say filters are still pretty popular. So I kind of share this. Whoa, that was loud and fast. So I'll share this video here talking about a student-run Snapchat actually from a school out in Missouri, Fulton Middle School.
So it's like an announcement.
And what I love about that example is, again, it's like becomes one-way messaging. It's another way to get out. It's run by students. It's easy to either take a picture, copy and paste announcements, and just another way to get it out. I know the young man you saw in the video talking to the principal, she's so excited about him because she said, oh my gosh, he never talked in front of class. Like he was definitely smart, wanted to contribute, but just didn't really speak out much. Once he took over the Snapchat, she said, you just saw the change in him, just his confidence, his ability to speak in front of others, to tell people about what's going on with just a night and day shift. And so sometimes even identifying these students, it's amazing the difference that you can have. Doing special events, doing special stories, having someone take over your Snapchat. We've done that quite a bit. We've had people take over Instagram stories as well. Geo filters are huge. Having a geo filter for prom, that you can only get when you're at that event. So there's some exclusivity. Geo filters for graduation. You can only use it if you're down on the field. And you're talking about, in some cases, investment of a couple dollars, because you're having this filter available in one specific area for an hour or two, right? So having little geo filters like, hey, if you're on your campus and take this photo around this thing, then you can use this filter. So there's really a lot of fun stuff you can do in Snapchat, especially if students are able to run it. It's easy to follow. We've seen a lot of schools will actually use Snapchat to sort of farm yearbook photos. So they'll have their snap code up, which I'll show one at the end, but they'll have their snap code up and the students can send photos from events. So it might be at a rally or homecoming, and then they'll collect photos from all over the stadium. So kids who are there will send them their different snaps, and then they'll use those to make a collage in the yearbook. There's really kind of some clever stuff to socially engineer content to repurpose later. Ready to go viral? So this is an often misunderstood term because viral could be good or bad, and bad tends to go very quickly. But even the good stuff can go viral, but it's heavily engineered, right? There's very few happy accidents out there. So the way we engineered this is to have my students create content. So if we had an event coming up, I actually had a position in my class specifically for communication around social media. So I would ask them, what do you guys want? Do you want a picture? Do you want a video? The one I remember the most was the year that animated GIFs were the thing. Like they really wanted an animated GIF connected. It was a spirit week. It was all around Harry Potter. And so we just did a ton of animated GIFs. So my communications person, we planned out what we're going to post each day, what time we're going to post, and then they would go and create the content. And then after we created the content, we sit down as a class and we talk about, now I could look at the analytics, which we'll get into next, but hey, when are you on your phone? And we go around the room and we found out most kids were on their phone either before school, this is high school, but it was 15 minutes before school. It was right as they're starting lunch because they're all getting on their phones to see where their friends are. Right as they got out of school when they're trying to find their ride or see what their friends are doing, or usually around 8 o'clock at night. The whole group kind of agreed on that. And so at this point, I would use Remind. I would send a text at 7:55. It would go out to all 50 of my students. They would get the same photo, the same caption. They would then, after we posted on our main account, they would post the same thing on their personal account. And then they'd all go online, whether Twitter or Instagram, they'd all go online, they would favorite, comment, retweet. And so you have, 50 times 50, I say 250, but I'm sure it's not that number, 2,500. I'm bad at math. But, 50 times 50, and then they'd be responsible for identifying 3 friends who would also favorite and retweet, right? Or favorite or reshare. And then we do the same thing the next morning. And so really it was kind of a way of, once we identified the time, once we identified who was sharing, got everyone sharing, particularly on Instagram, you're going to be more discoverable. The more likes and the more comments you use, the more likely you're going to show up in someone's feed. So when you post something on Instagram, if I can get 20 students to write on just go on and comment right away, it could be really simple, or even go on, have a call to action where it's like tag a friend or something like that. You're going to see your engagement go up exponentially, especially in that first hour. So I mentioned Remind. It was a great way to get all the students on the same page and have a lot of students sharing the same content. Remind became another avenue. Like I would share stuff on social, then I posted that through Remind. And so I knew from a psychological standpoint, I knew they're going to see the poster at some point. I knew they're going to see it on Remind. I knew that they were going to see it on social media. And then I know they'd hear it in class. So at some point, the messaging was going to hit them enough to where it's going to be like, oh yeah, we do have a dance this weekend. Oh yeah, there's the dress up day tomorrow. And then again, really focusing on the platforms where the students are at. For us, it was Twitter and Instagram at the time. Parents were all on Facebook. So we do stuff on Facebook so parents would know, but they're kind of not as involved in their kids' life at the high school level. So we did that more to like post like celebrations and like major events where we needed parental help. A lot of the day-to-day stuff would be on Instagram, on Twitter, or through the texting platform. And this is huge. Again, having students go like, favorite, reshare, repost. The idea was just eyes on the prize. Is how many people could we get to share? I know one post, one of our students got excited. He got something like 9,000 likes. And then we just gave him a hard time, like, do you even know that many people? He's like, no, I don't know how it happened. All right, we're doing this again. And it just became this exciting challenge of, okay, let's look at what we did. Is what's different about this? Why did this explode? And just, try to break down the science and how we can do that again. Get on viral?
Yeah, that was great.
And so, and here's kind of the data, a couple snapshots in Twitter and Instagram. Really look at the data, look at your audience. I think, we had a situation with I Can Help where it's just like, oh, we got to post at 6 a.m. Why? Well, our students are on 6 a.m. They want to start our day with I Can Help. Like, that's great. But if you look at the data, we don't have a lot of people on at 6 a.m. In the Instagram app, when you tap on your analytics, and it's very important when you set up your school account, you set it up as a business account because it's the only way to see your data. As a personal account, you want to have access to it. So you want to set it up as a business account, and then at that point, you want to link it to a page on Facebook. Even if you don't use that page, it's going to ask you to do that. But it'll give you numbers. So I can tap on those bars you see on the screen. It'll tell me how many of my followers are online at that given time. So I know in this case, if I post at 9, I'll have pretty good engagement. If I post at noon, that's my ideal time to post on a Friday. And then from noon to 6, I'm going to get, in this case, close to 1,000 people are going to be online and see my content. And I could probably let that ride through the next day. You want to be careful about posting every day, depending upon the event, because you can cannibalize your content. Meaning, when you post something, the more likes and comments you get, the more people see it. They're going to keep interacting. The second time you post another post, let's say you post at 6 in the morning and 3 p.m., by the time you get that second post, people are going to start interacting with the new one and not so much on the old one. And so whatever content you're trying to feature, that's really what you want at the top of your feed. And it may need to be up there for a day or two, especially if you're promoting something big. You don't need to promote every day. Unless, of course, that's your marketing thing. If it's a compliment account or a human story account, you're probably going to have students who are looking forward to that. So at the end of it all, kind of the best advice is train your students, train your audience on how you want to interact with them. Like, hey, here's where we're posting. It's going to be twice a day, or we're only going to post at 8 o'clock at night, or, we're going to post every once in a while. You want to kind of keep that in mind. But definitely, what are your profile visits? How many impressions are we getting? Do we get a lot of mentions? How many new followers? And this is where it's fun to really set goals with your students. Like, hey, we want to get 40 new followers. How can we do that this week? Hey, we really want to get 200 likes. The best thing, particularly on Instagram, if you can get anywhere from 20 to 30% engagement, that means 20 to 30% of your audience is liking your post, you're doing pretty good. It's when you start to see accounts, with a few exceptions, if it's 10%, like they have 200,000 followers, but less than 10% is interacting with them, it's either the content's not that good or, they probably bought a lot of their followers. And so you kind of want to be aware. If you can get that 20 to 30% range, if you're above that, you're crushing it. Like, that's a very good thing. If you're getting, 30, 40, 50%, there's a handful of accounts doing that, but they just have really good engagement and good followers. And so I touched on this one a little bit. Once we implemented, so this is in 08, we started doing the social media, we started doing the signs. By 09, 2010, we started doing the texting. Once we started that, we actually saw an 80% increase in participation. And we measured this. So every Friday was like Orange and Blue Day. So we would measure how many kids were wearing shirts. Now, keep in mind, we also started offering and selling class shirts at that point too. So if you bought an ASB card, you could get a free t-shirt. And the t-shirts we actually got sponsored by local communities. So we got them for pennies on the dollar, even to the point where we could actually give shirts away. That was a goal. We wanted free shirts. And so we look at who's wearing orange and blue. We'd also do, like, every Friday, if it was a sporting event, like, free face paint in the quad at lunch before games. And so we started counting, we go into each class and we count how many kids are wearing orange and blue, or during the day, and you could see a visible difference. And our counts, like, we saw that 80% increase from around 2011 to 2012 after a couple years of doing this, of just students dressing up more, participating more. We saw an increase in our dance attendance, our special events. It was pretty incredible, when you have 90% of your students going to prom, comparatively to the other high schools, which were nowhere near as high. Like, we were getting pretty excited to have almost our entire junior and senior class in one place on one night. So really hitting up those events, freshman orientation, senior breakfast, signage on campus, parents, having large social media teams, make sure I tie it in the school calendar, and having meetings about that, connecting to other social media accounts. So, if it's local Kiwanis, other schools, it may even be club accounts. So the Key Club has an account, and the Rotary Club has an account, and Drama Club has an account. So even like cross tagging and cross promoting on a lot of those posts. And it just became part of our culture. Kids knew where to look. They knew where to find the information. We had our students dialed in. Seniors were teaching freshmen. And so it just became this continuous cycle of content and promotion of offline and of online, and really just kind of built on itself. And the payoff was we had a more engaged school, and it was really fun at events. It was really fun to see kids dressed up, and just know what's going on. Like, kids didn't have to come up and ask the one person you might know. Like, they all just kind of knew and they shared. That's pretty incredible.
Yeah.
So what to do? Just kind of a few apps. I'll let you guys play around with them, but these are a few just content ones. And then I'll try and demo one here in a second. But the repost is a great one. So if a club or group posts a photo, you can use repost, and then that will allow you to share content from another account. Boomerang, fun little videos in your stories or in your feed. Unfold is a specific app for Instagram stories or even Snapchat. So you can go in there, it has layouts, and you can create a series of stories, like newspaper article looking stuff. And then you create the layout and create the content, and then you can post that the day of whatever event you're doing. Chatterpix, you can take any photo and make it talk. So it could be a photo, like a photo of your principal, if they're down for this. It could be, a picture of your book, and then you put on like some cartoon sunglasses saying, hey, don't forget me today. We're going to be studying for final. Canva, as well as Word Swag, a little bit different, but Canva will allow you to create content for social media. There's a free version and paid version on a lot of these. But if you need to create flyers, posters, Canva is kind of like a poor man's Photoshop, where it really allows you to create visual content without having to have a lot of programming or other graphic art skills. Word Swag is the same way. You can use pre-existing photos, your own photo. Mematic is basically take your own pictures and create your own memes. This is a lot of fun, especially with your school mascot, popular teachers, anything around finals, stuff like that. Photoshop Express is, again, if you do anything with Photoshop, it's just a great, simple little photo editing tool. Blur, if you need to blur anything out, it's just cheap and simple. Same with Magic Eraser. So you may hear about alpha images or PNG images that need to have an invisible background, or maybe you want to take something out, or maybe you want to take the background out and have a photo of one of your students, over in front of the Eiffel Tower because it's a French theme event. You want to show your students in Paris. Magic Eraser will allow you to kind of remove the background on that pretty simply on a phone, and then you can sort of place people wherever you want in a different photo. And then one of my favorites, kind of last two, Action Movie FX. So if you want to have any kind of special effects, they do a lot with Star Wars, but you can do stuff in the snow. This would be really good if you're doing any kind of themed event and you want something like really special, just to have in there and to show off kind of what's going on. I will say Auto Wrap is still the most popular app that we share. So if you want to create kind of just a fun song, so we'll do, this is turkey burgers. You can tell me if you hear this. Can you hear that okay? Awesome. So I'm going to use that beat, and then so I'm just going to do like a little rap song here, but no, like I'm just talking, right? Like I have no skills whatsoever. I mean, I could recite poetry and other random stuff, or I could talk about just using auto rap. It's a great way to kind of mix some words together. You can get super creative. You can get less creative. It's really up to you. But anything you want to put together, special event, snow day, you name it, and just put together a fun song that you can blast out via media word to your mother. So I'm just gonna do like a little rap song here, but no, I'm just talking about I have no skills whatsoever. I'm just gonna do a little rap song here, but no, I'm just talking about I have no. I'm gonna do like a little rap song here, but no, I'm just talking, right? Like I have no skills whatsoever. I mean, I could recite poetry and other random stuff. Or I could talk about just using auto rap. It's a great way to kind of mix some words together. You can get super creative. You can get less creative. It's up to you. But anything you want to put together, and then snow day, you name it, and just put together fun songs and blot down. Yeah. So you kind of get the idea, but it's a simple way. You can use it for test reviews. You can use it, have your kids create them around special events. So but it's just a really fun way to be creative around music and spoken word. Nice. And then kind of wrapping up, like this is a big part of it, owner versus renters, right? So we want our kids to be owners. We want them to care about what's going on. We don't have to like call us or someone else and they're going to fix something. We want them to take care of it. And this is something that gets missed. Like, schools are often, I think, afraid to engage in social media because the risk seems very high. And I get that. But the more we can involve kids in the creation of content, the more we can model and guide them, particularly in the younger grades, middle school and into high school. When something does happen, like they will take care of it. And I could tell you, we've had over 1,000 pages taken down over social media. When kids are managing the account, if someone comes in and tries to ruin that experience, they're going to know how to comment. They're going to know how to report. They're going to know if they need to block someone, if they need to remove a message. They're pretty savvy because it's theirs. It's their school. It's their social media page. It's their content. And they're going to protect it in a good way. And really, schools that are heavily involved in social media and connected and sharing and creating and promoting tend to have fewer social media incidents. And so the more we can do to train kids on how to create good content, because they don't know. We assume they do. They really don't. Mm-hmm. The more likely they're going to create good content and engage in an appropriate way, right? They will behave how we train them to behave. It's whatever the culture dictates. And then the flip side of that is if something bad happens, they're going to know what to do because there's a system and procedure in place because you've been training them the whole time on how to do that. So we really want to create more owners on our campus, either through staff or through students. And particularly students, they're going to be a big driving force in the culture because they're the biggest group on campus. They just haven't figured it out yet.
Yeah.
And just kind of some quick content ideas. Like here's one. It's a kindness bingo you see on the left. There's another one on the right. Just high-fiving friends. All right, so posting that on a given day. But you can even do the bingo and have a challenge. If they finish the bingo and they can take a picture of each one and just tag you, either in their story or in their feed, they could do it. They could tag you on it, and then whoever finishes the bingo, maybe they can get something at lunch, piece of candy, food, pizza, whatever. Here's another one, Kindness Week. So you see how they took the different photos on there using the hashtags, starting threads, just simple reminders. Or here's one announcing, hey, check your Snapchat next week. Like every day there's a different thing that's going to be going on with Kindness Month. So really sort of building that up. Notice these, the hashtags, some emojis in there. And they did a special filter for each day. And notice how they listed, like you have to be in that area to use the filter. Right. So when you set it up, you actually choose the physical location of where the filter is going to be to access it. So it kind of becomes an incentive like, hey, if you like Snapchat and this special filter, go here. Mm-hmm. And then here we have some different dress up days. So you have the Snapchat. They did some stuff with pic collage, doing a superhero day, and they all have positive words on their masks. You have the Kindness Week there on the left. So different projects going on, just sharing that. And then even on the right, you have the different signs that are going up. You probably saw a lot of stuff this year. We saw quite a bit where people just doing positive post-it notes in the bathroom, which is perfect for back to school. Even simple signs like, hey, do you know that you matter? Like you're valuable, like little positive things, but just having those up all over campus and just kind of around on there. And then we'll finish up here. Power of a hashtag. And this is also Fulton Middle School over in Missouri.
We all #FMS Teach And so we can see exactly what everyone else is doing, get ideas, collaborate.
A strong hashtag, your school becomes visible to people all over the country, but also with other schools, we're able to look in and see what they're up to, maybe get great ideas.
What's great about Fulton Middle School is once people saw the why, they jumped right on board. And so once people could realize the benefit of that, once they started realizing they could see what was going on in each other's classrooms, once they realized that other leaders in the education world would follow them and actually notice what they're doing.
I jumped in with both feet, and I'm a total convert. I love Twitter. Lets me knock down all the walls and show everyone what we're doing.
I did not do Twitter until we had the current leadership we have at Fulton Middle School, and immediately my PLN was developed. I've made contacts all over the world.
It can kind of, bring everybody together and everybody's doing. It's a good way to create community within a group of, various professionals. We have teachers and leaders, administrators, all the different people working together, and it's a way to show off and kind of come together.
But we really needed to, when we started our journey together last year, show the positive that's happening in our building. So when our teachers realized they could do that via social media, what better avenue to take? That's where our families are, that's where our kids are, that's where community is also, so that's where we need to be as well. Typically, you only see the negative that's happening on social media. Our kids need a positive model as well. And if the only thing that's out there is negative, it's really hard to show how you should be using that. So we feel like that's also like an imperative for us is to make sure we're being the models for our students.
Nice.
So yeah, no, I love that message, right? We need to be the models for our students. So again, the more we can engage and start to engage and just really tell our story, I think that's the piece that gets missed in education so much is, there's so many good things happening day to day. I think as teachers, we're trained not to brag and talk about our work. And there's some amazing stuff that's going on, and we really need to tell those stories. Speaking of telling stories, shameless plug, but we have an event, Digital for Good. If you want to hear what students are doing, the event is totally free. We would love it if you would join the live stream. If you cannot, we are at Facebook. We have a link on our website if you're interested in going. We have a teacher and 2 students if you're willing to come out to Menlo Park, California. We'll have about 300 people there physically. Our goal, we want to get 100,000 people on the live stream. Wow. So we're going big. But the idea is tune in. We have like one student, for example, built a robotic arm for an Army vet who lost his arm in a explosion, IED explosion, and like playing baseball. So we actually built him an arm where he could catch and throw a baseball as a sophomore in high school. We have a student who is raising money, has raised a lot of money for cancer research just by selling lollipops. We have a dancer who goes around and does free dance workshops and then incorporates that into an anti-bully curriculum that she presents over on the East Coast. So there's some really interesting stuff going on, particularly around mental health as well, and social media, and just positive projects from kids from across the country. And so they'll be sharing those stories on September 16th, 2019 as a Monday. But yeah, if you want to learn more about that, digitalforgood.net. We just love sharing positive stuff as much as we can. And for us, it's really about getting students up there and saying, hey, here's what I'm doing. We get kids inspiring kids.
That's awesome. I am really excited, to join the live stream, but I would love to come out to California if that's a thing. Listen, I've been talking about that. We're not sure, but that is so cool what you're doing. And I'm excited to tune in on the 16th of September.
Yeah, well, definitely. We're going to have some fun. It's going to be a good event. I'm very excited about, not only who's going to be there, but how it's coming together. I mean,
yeah.
It's exciting to have Facebook and Instagram hosting, but then we also have, a bunch of different gaming companies and other groups coming out, really getting behind it. So there's some cool stuff going on.
Cool. And Taylor and Ben have been out a few times, right?
Yeah, Taylor was out. He came out 2 years ago. Taylor and Ben came out last year when we were at, Supercell and then at Google. And
nice.
So I think you would like to come out again.
Yeah, I would too.
Okay.
That'd be so fun.
Let me know if I can help with that.
Cool. I will. Gosh, that was, Matt, my brain is like spinning right now. There are so many things I feel like we kind of are starting to share this last year. Like I said, we did that presentation about sharing your students' work and that it's okay to brag about your students or what you're doing and using hashtags to build community and how to encourage students to do that. And something though that like with this upcoming school year that I want to share more and how to do it. And I feel like this really gave me a lot of answers, and like just different apps and different ideas, because teachers are always asking, oh, what should we do in this digital media class? Like, we already created the commercial. Now what do we do? And so like kind of seeing the social media side and how they can, you know, just take off with that. And it's more than just creating graphics for the sporting team. So that was really helpful. That was great.
Yeah, no, if you want to know more, so we have a couple different online courses of people. So everything I shared is actually chapter 2 and a little bit of chapter 3. But we have a course online that schools can subscribe to and really learn all of this structure, right? And then last time we did the webinar in our curriculum, the curriculum kind of supports some of that learning. But yeah, if you look at the online course, there's one for teachers and then one for admin to kind of just give more in-depth on any of this stuff. So check out our website and you can learn more about the online courses and where to go for that. And then I think in the future, yeah, we can even do kind of like some deep dives and like focus on each platform, right?
Yeah.
So do like a day on Instagram, a day on Twitter, and just talk about how to differentiate content and how those different platforms work and just getting content out. So
that would be great.
There's a lot to do, and it's more, I think what I miss is teaching. Everyone's like, oh, you should do this, and oh, you should do that, and here's this great idea for this. And then as a teacher, you're sitting there going like, that's great. How do I do that?
Right.
Like give me the steps, like give me the structure. And really we're trying to break that down and provide that just to make it as simple as possible.
Cool. I love that. Wonderful. I took like 3 notes again, so.
There you go. Here's an example we're asking on the top right. So there's an example of a snap code. So it's kids just put your camera over it and then they can follow your account right away.
Yeah.
So if you don't have one, it's a good thing to have. Yeah. And like I said, do not be afraid to promote yourself. Like, hey, if you want to know more, just get ideas, follow us on social, connect on there. Feel free to reach out, email, contact Sarah. She knows how to get a hold of me.
Yeah. And sharing the slides and then also the notes that you said, I would definitely link those and our Facebook post and our email, and get it on Twitter like we did last time. So that was great. I feel like a lot of people engaged with that post.
Yeah, no, it was incredible. It's just getting the good words out. So
yeah,
trying to be helpful. Good things happening.
Well, I'm looking forward to deep diving into each platform, because this is going to be huge this year. And like I said, something, because we talk a lot about the streaming and then having the teachers, build up a streaming team, but then like going farther. And we have a few schools already doing that. And like Seward, they're killing it. Jill Johnson. That's cool to see. But we work with 110, 115 schools, and we only have a few doing that. So that's kind of my goal this year, is to just begin talking about it more and giving them the steps, kind of like what you shared there. So
yeah, that's brilliant.
Cool. Awesome.
Okay. Well, any questions, let me know. That was fun.
Great. Thank you so much, Matt. I'll stop the recording now.